Today's the day for the two NA teams who have yet to put a point on the board to do so, but the competition will be stiff if they're going to get that first win. I'm Keely Weed and welcome to HGC North America. Joining me as always for NA is J-Hop. But before we get to NA, huge congratulations to Granite Gaming, who secure, or should I say maybe sneak in their first win of Phase 2, right, J-Hop?
You can't spell stealth without steal, and when you go all stealth, that's pretty impressive there. Something I don't think anybody's ever seen, but yeah, definitely congratulations to them. It was entertaining for everybody. Our entire crew was watching that game backstage, so definitely a good way to kind of end EU before we start here in NA.
Yeah, J-Hop and I might have been getting into it a little bit more than you would expect backstage, jumping up and down. What was it? I can't remember the word that Darkmock used on Twitter to describe the draft, but it was a good one. But now we're getting ready to switch on over to North America. Let's take a look at the standings, because today we're looking toward the bottom of those standings. Two teams have yet to get a win, and that's LFM Esports and No Tomorrow. And yesterday, J-How, when we talked to Fan after Tempo Storm got their win, he mentioned that he feels like NA has a top 5 strong teams, and then Simplicity, we're still waiting to figure out where they are, and then LFM and No Tomorrow, unfortunately, not on that list.
Yeah, and a lot of it was simply around like Endemic. They looked really good in their first series, then didn't look so hot because Simplicity came out on fire. And he did say that at any given day, it could be any of those 5. The questions about Simplicity, by the way, he gets to answer some of those, because tomorrow, obviously, Tempo versus Simplicity, that's going to be another one. But obviously, with our attention today, it will still trying to figure out that top 5, potentially 6, 7, and 8, as well as we move through today.
Right, both No Tomorrow and LFM have played 2 matches now, and though both have had shining moments, and we'll talk about those moments for the individual matches, still looking for that match win. Let's take a look at the schedule today. Now, if you missed it, in Europe, we've been talking about it a lot here, even in North America. Team Liquid is on a tear, and it continues to look good. Nurok has been a big favorite of mine, switching over to the support role and doing super well there, but all of them have been rocking it. And then later on today, we are going to see Fury take on his old teammates from Gale Force Esports as LFM and Endemic go head-to-head. But first, let's get into our very first match today, Team Freedom versus No Tomorrow.
This, on paper, looks a little bit lopsided, but let me take you back to February.
All right.
Week 4, where Team Freedom was undefeated coming into that weekend, and No Tomorrow said, hold on a second. No Tomorrow was the first team to win against Team Freedom back when they were picking up the hype. Right now, Team Freedom seems like they're back to their former selves. So for No Tomorrow, yes, a few changes with this roster, but definitely that has to be creeping back into your mind. Something like hero pools or map pools come into play here, especially when you think about a team like No Tomorrow, and then alternatively Team Freedom as well when it comes to something like Infernal, but Towers for No Tomorrow. Things of that nature definitely are going to spring up. It's got to be in the back of your mind here.
Yeah, the maps is a point that I wrote down too, so I think it's going to be really fun to talk and postulate what is going to happen, because both of them have map bans that are more in tune to their opponents and what their strengths are. But before we get to that, 2 players that you're going to have your eyes on throughout this match are Lutano and Jay Shrita in the back line trying to make the plays. Let's hear from them about this match.
I personally love Team Freedom because I can see the players like playing the game every day. You can see all the players playing Hero League, and for me it's something that I really have some respect to them. For me, KZN it's one of the best supports in NA. I hope we can show all your potential and we can make a good match to everyone. I think the last season we won series versus Team Freedom, and probably you try to do the same thing again. We play so much aggressive and don't let them use all the macro that they have, because we know they have a good macro, but maybe if you can use your aggressive to beat this macro, we can win.
I think No Tomorrow still has a lot to figure out with their team. With the loss of Equinox, who was their main shot caller and drafter, and bringing in Akaface, they're still trying to figure out their style. Like last weekend, they were trying to define their own meta, I think, which I don't think they should really look to do as a team. I think they should try to copy what's already working, and then they'll have a lot more success, I think. I'm expecting a clean trio. Should be similar to the Simplicity series.
For No Tomorrow and Team Freedom, the game plan is very clear for this series. For Team Freedom, they're looking to emulate what happened versus Simplicity. They get their early lead, they run the game, they run the board with their macro, and they get that clean 3-0. Maybe with some of the adjustments, the adaptations that we saw in draft, but I think we'll see them stick a lot more to the standard kind of play from that match. But for No Tomorrow, it has to be a question of Akaface's drafting, if he's still drafting for the team, which is what the last thing I heard earlier this week. What can they do there? And can they bring in some of the aggression that Jay Schritta talked about, especially in the early game, not allow for that lead to come in, or surprise Team Freedom if they fall behind with some invades and maybe even just some setting traps for ganks?
That's been one of the Achilles heel of Team Freedom since No Tomorrow kind of broke that open with their aggression. Teams like, what if we just move into it? And as much as we saw that strength from Team Freedom a little bit more solid on the front line, their second series, they kind of went back to their old ways, didn't have that strength on that front line. We've seen some changes with Nasmus and Yoda still flexing between that ranged and melee role, depending on the composition. And I think that's one of the biggest weaknesses of Team Freedom is in that team fighting scenario. When they don't have that front line control, they struggle. And that is what No Tomorrow exploited against them before. They're like, what if we just run past this and take, because Lutano on the backside, Nasmus, depending on if he's back there, when you can get to those players that have such an impact in this game, it made life very difficult for Freedom to get ahead in those moments that you said are important to this team.
Well, the first battleground is ready, so let's get it locked and loaded. Again, both of these teams ban to their opponents, so this is an element of strategy, though we're going to see No Tomorrow go back to a standard Braxis holdout ban. Team Freedom does take away Towers of Doom. As you mentioned, Jay-How, this used to be a favorite battleground for Team Freedom, but already No Tomorrow has shown to pick and like Towers of Doom, and they very nearly got a win versus Tempo Storm there.
Yeah, Towers of Doom, things weren't the greatest for No Tomorrow in Part 2 of Phase 1. The only map that they won games on, Towers of Doom, coincidentally. One of the favorites that we generally see for Team Freedom that we haven't seen so much this phase is Infernal, but that is a map that No Tomorrow beat them on in the earlier part of this year. So those are two maps. Obviously taking Towers away, I think, is a very good ban targeted towards their team, as you said, their opponent. So heads up ban there, but we'll see how things come into play. But obviously Dragonshire in the early game, we know this type of map, if you do get the early advantage, it does make it difficult to come back on when you have the type of macro control that Freedom does tend to obtain.
Right. My concern is I hope we see a different kind of play from No Tomorrow on Dragonshire than what they showed versus Tempo Storm last week. It was double global focused, it was top lane focused, and they let way too much happen in the mid and especially the bottom lane, which is again, a place where Tempo Storm excels. You even asked Caterpillar about it. Why do people keep letting you do this? And he said, I don't think it's going to happen for very much longer, and with good reason. That is Tempo Storm, and this is Team Freedom, but Team Freedom, all they want in the world is to get ahead early game and then run the board with their macro game. So as long as they can do that, Dragonshire is a place where they could possibly do that.
Well, the focus again is going to be for me on the front line of Team Freedom, and we talked about how often that top lane is prioritized just for the solo, and they tend to stay there for the most part outside of the global coming in. But when it does come to the team fighting, is it going to be Urel? Who's going to be playing that role? Is it going to be Nasmus? Is it going to be Yoda? Obviously, it's been hero-specific up until now, but you've got to start defining that role so that people can get comfortable in that. We've seen the flexibility between roles like that historically never really going to be the answer. So for them, I think they need to start solidifying that, and I think a lot of that will come down to the Urel priority that we've seen out of a lot of teams. Very strong hero thus far, unless you're going against several silences and triple stealth. But we'll see how it plays out here on Dragonshire.
Yes, Dragonshire. We're heading to the beach, which, you know what? We've been in a heat wave in LA, so it doesn't sound too bad, Jay-How. One thing that has been cool as a result of that two pseudo solo laners is that they can draft things like the Falstad and then have very fluid laning setups. So, similar to what we saw from Gen G during Part 2 of Phase 1. However, I agree with you. Trying to switch back and forth with the Phoenix, especially, that was one of the core heroes switched back and forth for them. Both players are phenomenal, but trying to finesse and get the intricacies of those heroes. I think long-term, having Freedom try to solidify those roles a little bit more, especially, again, for Nasmus, trying to shot call from that format.
Yeah, it's one thing to be good at a role that you can comfortably play. It's another thing to be great and well-refined. And having the utmost efficiency in that role is generally going to win out. You're going to be more impactful in that 99th percentile of players versus that 96th to 98th percentile. You're good, don't get me wrong, you're pro player, but I think there's something about those defined roles that really help players stand out a little bit more.
One thing that we saw yesterday is very clear Genji Tracer bans or Abathur Dahaka bans. Some change up from that depending on the map, but generally the follow through is if the first pick team bans a Genji, they're going to follow with the Tracer, and then if there's an Abathur ban, a ban on the Dahaka. Here though we see with the Genji and Tracer, Team Freedom first picked that Ural, and Ural was not, she was played yesterday, but it was not to the same prioritization that we saw in Europe, especially today. This is where Europe fits Ural in.
It's so weird because I'm still trying to identify what Ural does better than anybody.
Live.
Other than Liv, like, she's there. You don't really kill her. She doesn't really kill too many people. She's hard to kill. She just kind of exists and helps the team. And as the Ret Paladin role, it's more like supporting the area, not a ton of damage, can do some damage, but it's a lot of control. And double global again here, and that's an early priority versus what we've seen from some of the other teams. We heard from Lutano in that pregame interview, maybe stick a little bit more to the meta. You might have more success, but no tomorrow. They're going to continue their drafting ways. Dahaka, not out of the ordinary. Falstad, not out of the ordinary. It's just pairing them in your first two picks, maybe a little bit out of what we would perceive to be the meta.
A lot of times teams who build into this kind of global-centric strategy are hoping that if something happens and they fall behind initially, the globals can keep them caught up so they get more chances to fight. Something that we even see a lot, and Skimmy talked about at the mid-season brawl, from non-league region teams, because it's a way for them to get more opportunities to fight. It's just whether or not you lose out too much on your ability to fight by having those more global-centric heroes. But here, if No Tomorrow can start to take some structure down, then they may be able to bring those globals in for fights and get person advantage during those fights because of it. The Ural at level 7 gets the Divine Steed so that she can try to make rotations down just as fast.
Easy rotations. ETC being picked up, could be stage dive. It doesn't necessarily match the global the same way, but it does have late game potential.
There's
if
Mal.
needed. Malfurion, he's taking a break. Deckard's taking a break. We're all just kind of chilling, waiting on the supports. Again, that's why Falstad Dahaka is a little bit different in the early rotation. You expect maybe a Malfurion, as of late, maybe a Johanna in some of those early rotations. But again, we're switching things up here. The Phoenix priority makes a lot of sense. He can rotate mid, he can rotate bottom. He does everything pretty well. Has the wave clear, has quite a bit of damage against this style of composition. So there are some things, obviously some strengths here, but the high priority in ETC, a little bit different than we're used to for Team Freedom.
Now that Phoenix, though, right along with what they have been playing with a lot, I feel like it's a very flexible pick for them. No Tomorrow showing that they're going to turn their focus now on the supports. They banned Deckard Kane. Expect them to follow up with a support in their next two picks then. And Team Freedom can take Johanna away. It takes away some of the wave clear, takes away a nice sturdy frontliner for No Tomorrow 2. And since they already have ETC, if they're wanting to be able to go into a mosh, granted they've already got some interrupts here for No Tomorrow, but Johanna can make things a little more difficult with getting your positioning correct as ETC.
You know, one thing that we have seen a lot of, obviously with Eurostars yesterday, is that Johanna into a Jaina. And if they were fearing maybe a Jaina, do you want to deal with the Johanna or do you want to deal with the Jaina? You don't want to deal with them both, so take away one of those options. You know, for Team Freedom, one of the things that we've seen a lot of lately is Collusion's Kerosene. And so I think the support priority for him is a little bit different than I think most other players. Deckard, it's fine. If you want to give Malfurion over to No Tomorrow, I feel that they're comfortable with that. And then potentially the Kerosene coming in on the other side for Team Freedom.
So what we saw before was this Falstad played by Jay Shrita, meaning that if this continues, we're looking for a Casanova hero. Though with the Jaina, it makes me think they might swap that up. Jay Shrita has played a lot of Jaina during his time on No Tomorrow. And then they get Malfurion to pair with that too. It's a great pairing to have together.
Shrite has gone varying builds on Jaina, and they've been more situational. Again, No Tomorrow tends to do things a little bit differently, and Jaina builds are no different. Sometimes, you know, they seem more effective than others. Other times they don't. It's a matter of finding that spot where that does work. It does make sense that if you're trying to do something, it requires more pieces to the puzzle instead of just that one individual performance. So it will require teamwork if he does tend to go into some other builds, but they have a lot of slows. They have Falstad if he lands his hammering. Of course, Jaina going to be there, but Team Freedom, again, Collusion, high priority on Kerosene. still have Stukov to consider at times.
What this does do, the last time No Tomorrow played versus Tempo Storm on Dragonshire, let me write that down really fast. They had this Falstad to Haka, but then they had a Phoenix too. Maybe this time having that burst heavy hero of Jaina, should Team Freedom take the bot lane, then start to try to siege in around the keep towers. Falstad can fly behind, fly them in, gust them in, and then you've got Ring of Frost and Twilight Dream to obliterate Team Freedom. That might be the hope here.
One thing that we don't see quite as often since Cleanse was removed from so many supports, and Rhaegar has kind of been out of meta until recently with his minor changes that we've seen that seem to be having an impact. A Cleanse Mosh. And that's something with the lack of cleanses that we've seen, that is something that we have seen teams in the past try and pull off. Against Stage Dive does seem a little bit more likely in the circumstances. We do get the Muradin in the last pick. But there is a lot of playmaking, and with Rhaegar, again, we're still trying to establish his role in the current meta. As much as we've seen Kharazim, Rhaegar fits very well. Very good in those early game skirmishes, can help get those camps in the early game, as well as with that Phoenix. You have a lot of wave clear. You've got the Li Ming for the potential burst damage. This is a very well-rounded draft for Team Freedom. It's also very strong on the front line, and we talk about aggression potentially from No Tomorrow. This is not the overly aggressive composition with a Jaina Falstad unless we do get those aggressive gusts. So for Team Freedom, this is a very good draft to go against this No Tomorrow draft. So I like a lot where we're starting today with Freedom.
I am too. I think the Purification Salvo is probably going to be the pick there unless we see Mosh Pit, Planet Cracker Wombos, but I think it's a lot safer to just go for the Salvo, and then it sets up a Li Ming really well for resets too, but still having your Urel for the top lane is going to work out excellently for this team, even amidst the global ganks. Let's get into game one between Team Freedom and No Tomorrow. Can No Tomorrow get a game win? So far starting out 0-6, but still trying and coming in week 2 with more. We've got Casanova playing Falstad, Tomster will be on Dahaka, Jay Shrita playing Jaina, Jen will be playing on Muradin, and Malfurion played by Akaface.
For Team Freedom, as they are letting their sprays be known, you can still cheer for those guys as they've been climbing the ranks. Collusion will be on support on the Rhaegar. Lutano, of course, going to be on Li Ming, trying to get those resets. Got quite a bit of action going on here. Nasmus will be back to that solo lane on Urel. A bit surprising as Yoda tends to be the Phoenix player here, Gilly.
Yeah, that is a continued change that we see. Having Nasmus play the Urel here. Maybe this is, this being a new hero, great hammer back. And that getting the stun too, charged up the jump, and then used Divine Purpose to get the throwback. I wonder if this means that we're going to see a swap back to Nasmus being in the solo lane, because with this new hero, it would feel like that would be a Yodo hero if they were going to stick with that role change.
Yeah, I mean, it just feels like that should be the natural progression, but Team Freedom is going against the grain at various points, and so far in the first 2 weeks, this is now our 3rd series where we've seen that constant change-up. Collusion, of course, a little bit of change-up build, going the electric charge at level 1, getting a little bit more radius on that. You could see a little bit wider area will help with the wave clear. Yes,
we saw that yesterday, and it was paired with Stormcaller at level 4 because the threshold of mana that you can get off of that talent is a lot more. And Spirit Walker's Grace doesn't have the same effect on mana because of the base changes for your chain heal, which is why we're starting to see some of these different builds, and I think it's really cool. Possibly we'll see at 16 more of the damage. Great hammer again. Nasmus is just leaping in, wreaking havoc in this early game to anybody from No Tomorrow.
Everybody kind of rotated mid. Dahaka ended up brush stalkering in, and it was all started because ETC went to power slide right as Muradin threw out a Stormbolt. They both kind of hit each other at the same time, so they just kind of looked at each other stunned, like, all right, we need some backup here, and everybody came in for that backup. A little bit of action, but no kills yet.
Urel doing her thing. Falstad's going to fly to the top. Let's see how this double global can do versus her. If she can hold her ground, charging up with the hammer. We're going to see a pause here for the moment. This team just making sure that everything is set.
Yeah, that rotation up, I mean, I'm trying to figure out what is going on there, because obviously we got the full charge on that. Do we have the leap out by Urel here in a second? Because the body block is definitely in place. We'll see how that plays out when we do come back. But a really good rotation. We expect that type of rotation, but with a hero like Urel, you only have one stun. And until you get Feeding Frenzy at level 7 for Dahaka, getting the cooldown on that drag, it takes a very long time in the early game. So generally you have one lockdown and you have a slow from Falstad. Getting ganks early game is going to be difficult. That actually looked like that might be first blood.
I think it might be. She did the charge on Righteous Hammer, so when we come back we'll see, but that means, it's likely to mean that she still has Divine Purpose up, so she gets a free charge of something. And whether she uses it for the Avenging Wrath or Vindication for the more heal, we're about to find out as she uses it for the Avenging Wrath, dives out,
well,
and then it has the healing.
One of the problems was that Casanova, when he first came in, he barrel rolled over, and I think he was trying to get the body block. It ended up not being necessary, and I think it's one of those situations that if you did want to chase for that kill, your barrel roll over the wall is no longer going to be there. So Nasmus is doing well to survive there. Jay Shreet, however, is not.
Yeah, and we have seen Collusion as Tomster's going to come in, get the drag, get the kill, 1 for 1. Another big benefit of having a Rhaegar, that since we haven't seen him in a while, a barrel lunge can chunk. You can put the damage in. It does put you in a fairly risky position, but as long as you are feeling good about your positioning, and Collusion, you heard it in the interview from Jay Shritta, he has just been so phenomenal in his growth throughout his supporting in the last couple of years. Got a lot of respect from a lot of people, Jay Shritta included.
A lot of aggressive Brush Stalkers in from Dahaka so far, making sure to get those kills. So they ended up getting the trade there 1 for 1. They also reclaim control of the shrines, at least momentarily. Shrite, however, again, Gilly, getting caught out in these situations. This is something Falstad's going to also fall. This is one of those situations where your rotation has to be the safe way. Pathing through the middle in that triangle is always so dangerous. And I think now, 2 for 2, it's time to take a different route there.
Yeah, I think the idea, as Jin was coming in to see if he could stop this Dragon Knight, the idea has been maybe one of making sure you're keeping up with Team Freedom in the early game. And that is where all the magic happens for Team Freedom. If they get the lead, they're probably going to win the game. If not, then you have a chance versus them. And No Tomorrow just need to slow that down a little bit. Yes, you want to make sure that they don't give a lead, but giving those staggered deaths, that's the kind of thing that Team Freedom's going to punish and grow on.
DK getting some early game value as the rest of the team also rotating here to the bot lane as the lead's starting to stretch. A couple kills and a little bit of structural advantages are now starting to open this game up. And, you know, the biggest point, as always, with Team Freedom is you give them a lead and it's going to be there. We see the ping potentially at the bottom. See if we get a Brush Stalker in. But as you said, with that Divine Steed, Urel has already made her way to the middle, understanding that there is that double global advantage. And so Urel just getting that double soak, trying to keep up and keep that lead extended.
All right, that's exactly what I want to mention. Being able to keep up with a double global with that double soak of Divine Steed is super nice for Team Freedom, that they didn't take really any damage at all from the double global, despite that maybe being a place. And No Tomorrow didn't choose to put the globals together and push somewhere like in the top lane. They wanted to keep the soak up since they were starting to fall behind in experience. But Team Freedom climbing ahead in that from the structural damage they were able to do off of that Dragon Knight and the few kills that they've had.
Nice adaptation here, I think, on the side of No Tomorrow. We see a lot of Give 'em the Axe, but we're getting Skullcracker, which every third auto attack, you're going to get a mini stun. And when you look at Urel, all of her abilities are charged. We don't see a lot of this just yet, but we'll see if it does have an impact later in the game. You could also interrupt potentially ETC on that front line, who also gets the armor from his abilities if things are coming in. So definitely something to keep an eye on. Phoenix as well, warping out to see if Jin, what value he can get out of this versus that extra damages. We've got a rotation down here. Dahaka, he's joining just for safety.
Team Freedom got their Giants slightly later than No Tomorrow, so they didn't show up in time to contest the camp with their possible heroic abilities. But Nasmus, having the Bruisers in the help in the top lane, is doing wonders for Team Freedom as they pick up their heroic abilities.
Stage dive was pretty much an instant lock here. No even feigning towards that mosh, but we'll see how that plays out. But Nasmus, again, holding point in that top lane, needing quite a bit of value. Tomster is going to duck under that hammer, but it doesn't matter. The damage is done. One tower down. The gate is down. so easy experience later in the game, but it drew so much attention to the top lane that Team Freedom is gladly coming down here in the bottom, and with Heroics, there's no real threat other than just bodies standing in front and minions going down. So Team Freedom, again, starting to stretch that lead a little bit, knowing what they like to do. They're definitely executing well here in the early game.
Yeah, No Tomorrow would have wanted to be careful defending that, because had the minions been pushed underneath the fort, might have been a possible stage dive possibility, especially before No Tomorrow gets heroic abilities. Now they have those, but we do have to remember there is a Malfurion and there is a Janet. There's even the Skullcracker Muradin. There's a lot to lock down Zugbrug if he overextends with the stage dive, and with the Gust, that might be a possible isolation kill for No Tomorrow. Though No Tomorrow have a lot of things they need to work on in this new iteration of this team, I think one of the things that they're really good at is punishing overextensions, over-aggressive calls. They've proven that versus both Tempo and versus Endemic. It's just a matter of, does Team Freedom give them those? Because that's not really a Team Freedom thing to do, make those kinds of over-aggressive calls.
Right now, the rotation's continuing here as Team Freedom, they're going to move towards the top, and they're going to be met by Tomster, at least for the moment. But you can see the movement by Jen in the middle of the map. We saw him just a moment ago, and you can still see on that mini-map, just looking to find somebody in rotation, seeing if he can be that beacon to find that pick, see if they can find that overextension that you're talking about. Right now, it's just a little bit of musical chairs for the moment, but for No Tomorrow, 13, not necessarily terribly scary, but still something they got to be cognizant of as we wait for this next phase to really come underway.
Yeah, and because ETC now has stage dive, we're seeing a change up in the laning. You're all having that Divine Steed. She can be that response wherever it's needed. She went up to the top, she cleared out the bruisers. Now she's joining up with the team so that they can get more out of that Aegis of Light pickup at level 4, giving the armor to the team if a fight breaks out until ETC can stage dive in. But this has been slow and steady now after the first Dragon Knight. It's all about Team Freedom just getting a lead here and there, waiting until they have that advantage that might come with 13 before we see them really strike.
Yeah, one of the best ways is to simply try and use your camp, whether it's to buy time, whether it's to buy experience, whatever it is. The Siege Giant camp was picked up. It's basically the last one that's been available up until now for Team Freedom. So No Tomorrow, they can use that, maybe get a little bit of XP, get them lane control for the moment, but they're not necessarily finding too many picks off of it. Again, they do have the global advantage, but you can see ETC on the top has the stage dive and unwilling to commit basically to the bottom. Maybe if Urel shows, they might try and come in here, and I think that that's what they're looking at. Urel showing they're going to come in here, and I think that the fact that Urel's so far up, as we see on that minimap, unable to really contest that, and for Team Freedom, you're right on the cusp of 13. Is it even really worth contesting?
And that's the kind of thing that I was hoping to see from No Tomorrow, is willing to be aggressive and not allow things to happen for free. Now Nasmus was dragged. Isolation's gonna miss. The Righteous Hammer mounted up Divine Steed, but getting dismounted there. Casanova wants to keep on the chase. Vindication charging up gives the little bit of healing. She was pretty much out anyway. 13's there, and unfortunately for No Tomorrow, they don't quite have it yet, and they didn't get the kill, but they're very close behind. No Tomorrow's hanging in there, J-How.
They are, but it's one of those things. To the eye, yes, they're hanging in there. It's 13-13, but the feel of it definitely feels like Team Freedom has been in most control of this game. Structurally, it doesn't look like anybody has an advantage. It just seems like Team Freedom has forced a lot of the rotations. However, No Tomorrow, they're trying to make a play here on the bottom Knights, and I think this is an opportunity for them. If they do want to take that fight, if they do want to force their advantage, it's got to be down here in the bot lane with that camp. It's going to be an opportunity. They will have a camp pushing against them in the top, but I think they have an opportunity here if they're going to try and take it.
Remember, double global is a nightmare scenario to deal with for a team trying to play against that on Dragonshire. So Team Freedom continues to try to set up for openings. For the moment, they are defending the bruisers in the bottom lane. They do have that push to keep a hold of top so that No Tomorrow can't use that to get a Dragon Knight in the interim. And we're going to see the musical chairs happen again, ring around the rosy of Dragonshire as the shrines switch sides.
And I want to go back to an earlier point, is that what do you do with the camps? Are you getting structural value? Are you setting up kills? And one of the things that you can do with that bottom Knight camp is that it couples with the minions, and it makes it super easy to push in because those towers are basically almost down. A little bit of pressure there opens that up. You have the global, then you can dive the fort, then you can force the fight, and you have spell armor if it falls back. You have plenty of opportunities.
Urel's not
Here's
here.
going to be a gust. They don't have minions here, but the fort falls first. However, Phoenix is going to be the first to fall, and here's the aggressive nature that we're looking for, that overextension. going to be punished against Team Freedom.
Beautiful Stormbolt stops the power slide out too from ETC, giving the double kill. And this was all because Nasmus was the one in the top lane. We talked about the ETC and the stage dive, but those rotations were manipulated in a way. Hello. Welcome back. Aw, thank you. Those rotations were manipulated in a way, and ETC Zuggrug wanted to be that anchor, that core anchor that you expect from an ETC and from the main tank player, but that was something that No Tomorrow could punish. And though, yes, they didn't push along with that bottom camp, they did come in and punish Team Freedom for just trying to take out that fort on the outset, and have gotten 2 kills, maybe more from it.
I would say that's more of a misplay on Team Freedom, but the capitalization on it by No Tomorrow is definitely there. If you're Team Freedom, the global definitely has to be there. The minute Urel shows, it's go time, right? You're on even talent tiers. Urel's at the top. Divine Steed is nice, but she ain't making it down.
Right.
And the minions were gone. Everything was in their favor. And so for that of No Tomorrow to make that play, it was a very heads-up play, and it's just it's all you have to see is that Urel, I've got global advantage, let's go. And I think that's just more of a misrecognition on the side of Freedom, but for No Tomorrow to make that play shows that they have something in mind. It's just the opportunities that I feel they could be creating elsewhere have not necessarily been as abundant, so we'll see if they can continue to make plays, but it's more about forcing plays instead of capitalizing on your opponent's mistakes in that nature. It's about creating opportunities more than it is just waiting for them to happen.
Right, and No Tomorrow have the ability to make those kinds of plays because of the draft they have with the double globals. If Team Freedom was expecting a normal, my solo is going to be versus your solo top, and then the rest are going to rotate, we might have one person go up to the top looking for picks, that's not going to be the case. And this is a big bait. Nasmus has been pulled all the way over to the other side. Let's see if they can get the stop here as she tries to Avenging Wrath out. There was the knockback to Jaina. Akka here. Ardent Defender's been used. Body block's waiting until that's done.
Not a full charge there. Divine Steed, the minute you mount it up, they get the kill. They do get the trade onto Haka in the bot lane, does Team Freedom. So it's a battle of the solo laners get taken down. No clear-cut advantage. Experience, however, after that last team fight. No Tomorrow has evened it up just a little bit. See Team Freedom, they're going to get their Siege Giants. Night Camp in the bottom, still about a minute and a half away, so no doubling up here in the bottom, a la Tempo Storm.
We see Northern Exposure now for Jaina, should be able to help get those kills faster, as it did take a little bit of time to bring down that tanky Urel, though Ardent Defender was a big part of that. Bruisers for No Tomorrow is going to help push that out. They are starting to get things done in that top lane. Finally, although Urel has held it for a lot longer than you would have expected, No Tomorrow have been more focused on bringing the globals down to have a man advantage in the fight.
And see, they're doing similarly again. They get the camp. They're not going to push with it. They have to respond to the siege camp bottom. They'll send Haka up. But where are we going? Nice wave of force. Jin, he's got to heal up. Healing static value as well as Avatar. That's going to buy a little bit of time. Thompster's like, hold on, can we make something happen? There's going to be the drag. Nice cleanse by Collusion. Going to keep him alive. Water Elemental in pursuit. But no real follow-up. Again, just the opportunities that you're waiting for, it's just not there. What are you making happen? And No Tomorrow. They got into a fight, they got the gust, they disengage, and we restart. It's just been a game of resets at this point. And not the good kind for Li Ming.
It has felt to be a slower game, though 4 kills apiece. Team Freedom, though, has that bottom lane, so it's a little bit scarier for No Tomorrow now, giving up that Dragon Knight. And Nasmus dodging everything. Yoda, everyone funneling in. This might be the case, the first 5v5 fight.
The isolation met him as soon as he landed. Zuggrug, it's going to wear off. He's going to use that face mount. Nasmus, however, still going to go in. Another drag's going to land. Urel, extremely vulnerable, not able to get that Ardent Defender off in time due to the stun lock there. So nice follow-up there on the side of No Tomorrow. This is an opportunity now. They instantly send Haka down to the bottom. They have the global. They have the numbers advantage. See if they can get a DK now.
Yeah, this is the difference of having those globals, too, is a lot of times you may get that one kill, but because your opponents have a global or you have to take so long in rotations, you can't get that. And now Lutano gets caught. Had to know that there was going to be people trying to take that Dragon Knight, maybe seeing if he can poke, delay it a little bit longer until Urel is back, but unfortunately for him, met by Jin and the damage of No Tomorrow, and now losing Lutano is a staggered death that Team Freedom quite simply cannot afford right now.
Things starting to look up here for No Tomorrow. They now have themselves a 1-level lead. It's going to look even better by the time they take this fort down. Should conceivably take the keep wall down if they can get some minions up here to really push forward. They're also using those globals in the top and mid lane to just stretch this. They want to race towards 20. They want to see if they can then play around the 20, double up on these Dragon Knights in the future. See if they're actually going to go. It looks like Daka's going to come in and try and dive behind this potentially, but they're just about out of minions here. That last one, the fort should still fall, but no potential follow-up. But 20, very, very close all of a sudden.
Triple fort from this Dragon Knight, the Bruiser's top, and the push of No Tomorrow. This is a completely different game, all from that top fight that favored No Tomorrow so well, and then getting a kill on Lutano.
I mean, as critical as I've been for No Tomorrow ever since Team Freedom, whenever they don't have a camps, they haven't necessarily forced anything. The one time they did force was that bottom fort, and they weren't able to do anything with it. So No Tomorrow starting to be the counterpuncher in this fight, and it's working out very well for them. So Team Freedom, it's just without the global, the traditional global outside of the stage dive, No Tomorrow is finding opportunities all of a sudden.
Yeah, and Team Freedom don't want to leave ETC in a lane. It has been Urel this whole time, and Urel has been ganked, she has been killed, or forced to use Ardent Defender. And ETC does offer peel for the team, as you would hope for, but even with a stage dive, when he is separated and the stage dives in, No Tomorrow has the control over that too. That was a fantastic isolation before. They have Valfurion for roots. This is a very good understanding of No Tomorrow of what they need to do with this double global composition. They went back into it after not having success with it versus Tempo Storm, and they're finding a lot more here. And that's great to see from them, that they're willing to give it a chance again.
Well, they're taking a page out of Tempo Storm's book because they've doubled up on camps. They've got their siege, they've got the night camps here. You know, there is quite a bit of clear once Phoenix makes his way over, but this keep under assault here and the threat of 20 is making it difficult. This should be keep number 1 going down. No Tomorrow, they're getting aggressive, but they don't need to get over aggressive. They do get a kill, they can end here. They might actually posture up to see if they can end. If they get 1 kill, they can move forward, but the minute this spell aura goes down does make it a little bit more troubling and a little bit more difficult, but they're going to continue to move in here, at least for the moment.
Yeah, because of the Lutano and the inability to take that out, Yoda's been trying for it. Zugrug in danger, rooted. Ancestral does not connect, and now ETC is gone for a minute, and still the spell aura lives on, finally going underneath the core. It will stop. Akaface used Tranquility now. Jin's gonna dive in again deep underneath. Can they get this kill on Yoda? This would be everything. They root him, they kill him, they stun him, he's dead before Ancestral yet again can go off, and that's the kill No Tomorrow needs here.
That might be enough. Isolation's gonna be used. This should be No Tomorrow taking this game as 3 people are now down on the side of Team Freedom. No 20 here. Collusion had already used the cleanse on the previous stun, so Yoda getting caught out twice there. And now just like that, No Tomorrow, slow start, Gilly, but a fast finish.
1 Dragon Knight was all it took to take out all of the forts, and from there, they said Tempo Storm had a double camp against us that worked pretty well versus us. Why don't we give it a try?
I think at one point they even had a triple camp.
They did.
That was what
they
was the scary
camp,
part. Yeah. But this is what you do when you have that lead, the clear priority on the top fort and the mid fort, using those globals, and then of course using the DK in the other one. That lead went from dead even to 2 levels, and it's like, holy cow, you're going to have 20 tier advantage plus global. They got the siege camp, they got the night camp, and they push down that bot lane. That's a very strong power move here on Dragonshire. And when you can pull that off, it's much easier to get out, but the late Ancestral is hard, the timing a little bit difficult because the burst damage from Jaina, and then of course Phoenix getting caught out there at the end, it was just too much to overcome.
And I want to go back to that one moment where Team Freedom were trying to push down bot fort, because No Tomorrow, had we seen them play versus Tempo Storm, whenever Tempo Storm focused bot lane, No Tomorrow were just taking their globals up to the top. We'll push top instead. But they were not getting as much done as Tempo Storm were. And then you have the problem of those camps. No Tomorrow took that lesson and ran with it. They brought the globals down. They punished that Urel showed top. ETC came, or was there. It didn't matter. He wasn't able to peel for the team. Getting those couple of kills, keeping control of the bottom lane, and having more favor toward it, respect toward that bottom lane, shows the growth and understanding and taking those lessons and applying them in a real world scenario. The very next week, this was awesome to see from No Tomorrow. They deserved that win.
Especially the fact that they stayed committed to the double global. Again, the double global on your first 2 rotations. It's not common, but the fact that they made it work, they're definitely onto something. So something in scrims is working. Something about Dragon Share obviously does prioritize the global, but the fact how well they played around it to get the Urel pressure, even the kill up there, and then of course that bot lane seemed to be the turning point in that game. And again, I think Team Freedom, I'm not sure what was going on there to push forward that far and that comfortably. It's just moving down bot lane that aggressively without the same style of protection. It was just a little bit too easy for No Tomorrow to capitalize on, and that was a great opportunity for them to come back. So very well played by No Tomorrow.
It was such an important win for No Tomorrow too. Like we said earlier, they were 0-6 in games after last weekend. So it's a really rough start for a team that almost did not make it through the Crucible. So now getting a win here has to feel so good for this team. Let's see if they can keep the momentum going as we head to Tomb of the Spider Queen for Game 2. Team Freedom last week, after losing their first game